good question.
So, off the jump, the main thing I can say, at least again from studying history, there are a lot of commonalities that we do share in terms of communities. The one thing I would say is a level of mutual understanding and then mutual advocacy. So essentially, while with any groups, especially if people are basically work their soft, if you do enough study, you can see commonalities with pretty much most groups out. Now, when the rubber meets the road is when it comes to mutual advocacy, meaning that, yes, we advocate for causes that basically work for basically their community, but also when we need assistance with advocating for causes that are critical to our community, it's the same. So, I would say a combination of mutual understanding, but also mutual advocacy. Does that answer your question?
Remember what the great Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that's what we do, how we come together, stuff like that. We got to maintain that community, that social justice for all, right? That's what this has always been about. That's what the Black Heritage Society is always about, you know. We want to make sure there's no injustice to anybody. Because if it's injustice to anybody, it's injustice to everybody. And that's what this is all about, okay?
So why did Woodson start Black History Month?
Yes, he wanted African Americans to know the accomplishments that they were rendering here in the United States. And he started the first week, it was just a week, and that was in February the 12th, 1926. So actually, this is a 100-year celebration. Dr. Martin Luther King, you know, with the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, you know, he said he had a dream, and that's what this dream is about. Us coming together, working together to promote inclusiveness, freedom, all of these things. So we're sharing his experiences, and that's what we're doing today, just like they're talking about. So thank you.
So, how has hip-hop shaped social movements?
Can you repeat the question?
How has hip-hop shaped social movements?
So, I would say, again, my specialty is Black military history, but I can speak a little bit when I'm not at the forum, so take my basis of my opinion and make it song. But when you look at hip hop and its origins, hip hop, especially when we consider kind of modern hip hop, I don't forgot the guy's name. There was a gentleman who he did a poem or spoken word called The Revolution Around the Telephone. Oh, Gil's Got Hair, that's his name.
Yes.
I'm sorry, sir. When you look at when you look at the people who ironically end up either inspiring or having a kind of early blueprints going in hip hop, they were people who came from, dare I say, a radical tradition or understanding to where we're speaking about the injustices that we see in society or that we are noticing. So and when you look at a lot of early hip hop, I would say, particularly hip hop, not only from New York, but even some of the early hip hop that came from California, what you would see is that a lot of the hip hop and the rap was mostly speaking on these people's lived experiences. Like Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, where he talks about essentially kind of living in poverty and kind of the ills and navigating other poverty. The same thing what you see later when I write about early gangs. so I would say some of the earliest cases, ironically or unironically, would be in the LA uprisings of 1992. You see where some of the young people who are out there, especially after Rodney King, Latasha Hawkins, the lady who got shot in the head, basically. But what you see is that when people take it to the streets, they're literally basically saying that, hey, NWA kind of called this out basically a few years earlier, but they were dismissive of it. So I said all to say that when you look at hip-hop in its origins was essentially speaking on the conditions that were existing in those communities, but not only the communities, but also talking about how the world was. And again, when you look at the music and stuff that also influenced a lot of these hip-hop guys, you see where some of the music they're talking about, yeah, they had some glitz and guns, but like you have where some are talking about like the state of the world, how people have to basically worry about getting drafted or serving overseas and then coming back and not having the best conditions. So to basically to summarize it, you do see where hip hop does have a long history of connecting to advocacy on the ground. It's just the fact that I would say more so now, we have to kind of go and look at the underground of whereas I would say back in the early days, it's like you can be spotted out and over.
So my question is, can you name a black scientist, actor, or entrepreneur who still inspires us today?
Well, I was
Michael Jackson.
Well, you know, we just learned that Reverend Jesse Jackson passed away. And he was really a civil rights activist for the community. He did a lot of teaching, entrepreneurs, you know, he got with the professional football players and made that where they could be economically empowered. So there's a lot of work that African Americans have made toward this country, making our world a better place for each and every one of us. So please, please read about Jesse Jackson. This is a pivotal time. This is the time for all of us to look at our history, learn from our history, so that, as he said, that we learn from the history so things repeat themselves. And when it repeats itself, you can examine what's going on. You can look at the facts and see what was implemented. And then you can make a constructive decision on how to carry it, how to move forward. History is just a tool for us to improve. If we don't improve, Dr. Martin Luther King said, if we don't live together as brothers, then we should perish as fools.
So my question is very broad, but it's what does equality mean today?
the question is equality.
What does equality mean today?
Okay.
You know, that's disturbing. That's something I need to ask you. Like in crib. Well, so when you ask what do equality mean to us, what do equality mean to you, right? We believe in equal protection under the law, right? Equality means being treated fairly for who you are, not for how you look, not for the color of your skin, but for the content of your character. You want equality, you want to be treated fairly, right? That's what this is all about. If you ain't done nothing wrong, why should you be picked on? Alright? I serve this country, just like she served this country, to give everybody the right to make choices that they want to do. Alright? It ain't about, hey, just because, hey, can you look a certain way? No, I don't care how you look. It's how you treat me and how you treat each other. That's what equality is all about. But right now, it's all about how you treat each other. Right? Kindness, we got kindness. That's how it's taught. Right?
we do attend your events as well, but not only just attending events, let's say other community, cultural communities like us, Hindustan Civic Sangh. If you want to, if we want to collaborate with you, right, and support your missions, what we can do it, how we can do it.
First of all, with Black Heritage Society, we got a lot of events that we do throughout the year, right? With community activism and stuff, right? We always want to bring the community in, right? Because on April the 4th, we're going to have a candlelight vigil at the McGregor Park, with the Martin Luther King statue, right? We're going to be down there having a candlelight vigil and stuff like that. Me being a veteran, I'm always out there doing stuff, we're probably, making sure us veterans get the benefits that we earn. Because like I told you guys earlier, these guys ride a camp, and then they were neighbors. So this Monday, they're going to be having a protest at the regional office in Houston. All right? But this is what this is all about. It's always working with every community you can get with, because everybody got something different going on. We don't have to lead on everything. Hey, look, I don't mind following. That's what this is all about. We follow. In some places, we got to lead and stuff like that, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Because the injustice to you might not be the same injustice to me. Because they're going to treat me one way and treat you another way. Because I serve this country and stuff like that. And so they're going to do different things, all right? So this is all about us coming together as a group and finding out what we got in common so we can promote this equality that we all want, okay?
So, the answer to your question, Black Heritage, this year we had the Unity Parade. And recording, maybe there were right at 400,000 people that were spectators for the parade. They came out in the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., unity. This is where we can start. And that was the reason why when Reverend Derek King came and we started working together, building bridges. We're starting. This is the start. And we're going to continue. So let us support you, and we do our best to come out. And we support you, or y'all can support us. That's one way we can continue to move forward. Any more questions?
Yes. One more question.
I have
Thank you. So thank you again for the wonderful talk, presentation, learning experience for us. I was curious, in terms of collecting history, for the history of the African American people in the military, what are some of the non-traditional sources, poetry, music, that kind of built into it? And if there was one that's really close to your heart, which one would it be? And who is the author?
Thank you. So, when it comes to Black military history, particularly, so for context, my specialty is primarily Black military history of World War II, or I was just saying 20th century, just to be safe, because others. But when you talk about traditional way of studying military history, normally you go to the regiment's records or the unit's records, and you say, okay, well, this documents, okay, they were in this unit, there were some of these awards, stuff like that. However, with most, to fully understand the Black military experience, the most primary source that we tend to look at is mostly a mixture of letters and oral history. Because oftentimes what you will see is that some of the stories that would be published officially would not be the official story. So one of the units I really find interesting is a unit called the 364th Infantry Regiment, 2. And like this unit, there's an all-black unit that initially was stationed at Camp Cale in Louisiana, then they'll move to Arizona, then they'll move to Mississippi, and then they'll move to Alaska. them. And then there's another event that was really speculative for years called the Camp Van Dorn Massacre that was also attributed to him as well. So, but the reality of it that I found interesting in studying it again is that while the official military records will say, oh, this was this, what you see is that in the personal narrative of the soldiers, that the soldiers, they wanted to serve their country, they wanted to go overseas and literally prove their honor on the battlefield. But what you saw is that oftentimes they would be kind of shown around when they had, I would say, a well-meaning commander that probably didn't know what to really do. That would also backfire. And then the most interesting thing about it, there is a branch of the military back then called the Counterintelligence Corps. And funny thing about that, Henry Kissinger, he was actually part of the Counterintelligence Corps during World War II. But the reason, so officially the Counterintelligence Corps, their objective was to prevent dissension within the ranks, make sure that the propaganda from the enemy is not impacting the ranks. But when it came to black soldiers, again, with letters of moral history, they had a different perspective than the Counterintelligence Corps. In fact, some of them would compare the Counterintelligence Corps to J. Edgar Hoover's FBI, because you had elements where you had informants, where they would go to soldiers within the ranks, say, hey, we need you to inform on these people and stuff like that. And in fact, when you look at the record of 364, particularly after the Phoenix Massacre and then in Camp Van Dorn, Mississippi, you literally see, and this is the funny way the military did keep these records, where you had informants from the soldiers literally gathering information with other soldiers trying to see, well, these soldiers are demanding too many rights, or these soldiers are complaining about Jim Crow laws. And even the basic informants were saying, these soldiers, they really just want to serve. They're just tired of being stateside. Now, granted, you had the one guy that was inflating all the stuff to basically get more resources out of it, but as I said, when you look at the black military experience, a lot of oral histories, letters, there is, I think there's one or two cases of music, and then, ironically enough, talking to veterans, even looking at certain movies, actually do a better job of portraying the black experience. And one of my favorite movies about that is A Soldier Story. Like, if you watch A Soldier Story, you say, oh, well, this movie is fictional. Yeah, it's fictional, but when you talk about the movie, and ironically, the director didn't even intend for the movie to be that way. He said, well, it was to show that black people have intra-racism. And as a historian, I was like, no, that's not really intra-racism, that's internalized. Well, I was like, that's more so internalized Jim Crow and how that impacted the mental capabilities of these soldiers. Like, if you get a chance, I'll say you watch A Soldier Story if you can, and you'll probably see what I'm talking about in terms of how internalized it gets, because when you think about these systems, when you live under them for years and years, you begin to internalize these systems.
What a wonderful question, and I have two books here because Black Heritage Society. Come on. Black Heritage Society, we now have those banned books in our facility. So this is another way you can come and read the information. We do have some books that you can purchase. Let's go.
They want to vote.
Come on, we're going to get that question. I'll show you with everybody.
Coming back to when you were talking about Jackson, I don't really remember his full name, but like, what was he, like an actress, a scientist, or what?
Very good question. His name is Jesse Jackson, and he was an advocate. He wanted people to have equal rights, so he was out there advocating for people to have better conditions economically, as well as for justice to be served. So he was out there on the forefront. We call him a trailblazer, talking to the presidents, talking to the political leaders, trying to get laws changed so that it's better for everyone. Now, we do have that information in a book. This one happens to be, and this is what I'm going to give you. He was an activist, and many know him by his name is Martin Luther King Jr. So we have to get these books. They're not available in school. Here you go. They're not available in school. So So therefore, you don't know all the history of Reverend Jesse Jackson. We got to go to the libraries. These books are printed. So we do have books, the abandoned books. We have Black author books. We have Black history books. It's time for us to, if you want to read about these individuals, we have those books. Just like I'm coming here to learn more about your culture, you all can pick up a book and read about our culture. We have more in common than what separates us. So we want to acknowledge your accomplishments. Again, these are ways that we can learn from each other. I have another question. Oh, okay. But he's coming. We have a book for you. All right, you like this? And he's going to use this, and he can learn about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and his advocacy work in the community. Again, he was instrumental in helping pass the 1964 Civil Rights Act, so everybody, there was no discrimination. And then in 1965, the Voting Rights was Act, so that we all could vote. So this is important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was very enriching and very enlightening. But as I was sitting there,